Okay, guys, it's Game of Thrones time. This is Tower Babble, the Game of Thrones breakdown. We're talking about Season 3, Episode 9, The Reins of Castamere. If you've never listened to us before, we talk about this show mainly as a show. I've only watched the show. Dan's read all the books twice, I think, right, Dan?
Yeah.
And, again, so I'm Julian.
I'm Dan.
And we're going to talk about, again, like I said, Reins of Castamere, which is the 9th episode, the biggest episode usually of each season, and this one lived up to that.
Yeah,
in
no
a
different.
big way. Dan texted me on Sunday night when I was working, and I wasn't able to watch it live, saying, as I asked me how it was, I asked him how it was, and he said it was meh. So I was like, I was not excited at first to watch it. I was like, well, whatever, I'll just watch it whenever then. And well, he's a bastard, so because it was much better than meh. So we'll start by saying by talking about the major stuff that happened this week, and then we'll talk about whatever else happened later in the episode. So spoilers, obviously, for everything through this episode. Nothing from the book, as far as what's coming.
Yeah.
Robb's dead.
Yeah, there we go. And Catelyn as well.
Yeah.
And Grey Wind.
Yeah. Well, actually, I don't remember who Grey Wind was, but I know
that's his direwolf.
Okay, yeah. Oh no, I thought you were talking about like some of the older, like the Starks that were with him. Some of the
and then, yeah, that's the other thing. Like they didn't really show it too well in the show. They just showed them killing a couple of the Stark soldiers, but yeah, they like decimated the army.
Yeah, that okay. So they killed.
It's not exactly. Yeah, it's not really clear like what's happening, but yeah, it's a huge blow to the Northern Army.
Well. There's none anymore, I assume.
Pretty much, yeah.
So what I want to ask you right off the bat is there a certain what happened here? It was at a wedding, right?
Yeah.
So because of that, is there a certain did they break some rules?
Oh, they broke a lot of rules.
Okay.
A big thing in Westeros, by all the laws of gods and men, that there's a scene at the beginning where they were passing around a bowl of like salt and bread.
Mm-hmm.
And like I guess it hasn't been made clear in the show what that is, but if say I invite you into my house and I let you partake of my salt and bread and my food, it's called the laws of hospitality. You're like I'm not allowed to do what they did. I'm not allowed to kill you. Invite you in and make you feel comfortable in my house and then kill you. So like. Not only was it just a shady move, they broke a lot of laws, and that's really looked down upon in Westeros.
So is that obviously there's little that anyone can do as far as it's payback, but is that something that will be like remembered? That's something that's like not going to just go away. That this did this in this way.
Do you want me to talk about it? That kind of stuff. Yeah, this is a big deal. It's going to be a big deal. Everybody will talk about the Red Wedding. That's what it's called, if you weren't familiar with the term.
Okay. I wasn't familiar with that term.
Okay, so this event is called the Red Wedding. It is a big deal. It's unprecedented because it was so shady and it was very dishonorable the way they did it. Mm-hmm. It wasn't just taking revenge for, Robb not marrying one of the Frey girls. It was lying and cheating and backstabbing.
Sounds very Lannister-esque.
Yeah,
in a lot of ways.
Gets the job done, right?
Well, yeah, sure, I guess.
No, the way you have to think about this, because it's not just Robb and Cat, but their army that's destroyed. In terms of the War of Five Kings, that's what season 2 and most of the season were about.
It's over.
It's basically over. It's just the Lannisters and the Ironborn that are left.
Yeah, well, I mean,
and Stannis technically is around, but his army's also been pretty messed up. So he doesn't have a lot going on.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of Stannis, I can't help but feel like that whole scene with the leeches had some way of.
You think it had something to do with it?
I think it did. I think there was something there. Obviously, you're expected to, I think, in a certain way, to tie that together, and you probably are. Rightly so.
I mean, Stannis, yeah. It's hard to say because this is obviously a plan the Lannisters and the Boltons and the Freys did concocted together. So that happened before he burnt those leeches. How much does the religious part of the show, influence what happened?
It's like how much was destiny and how much was changed by if not, if at all. I guess the only way to know would be if something happens to. So what were the other two names? It was Joffrey and
Balon Greyjoy, the King of the Ironborn.
So we will see what happens with that then.
I suppose from Stannis' perspective, that leech did work though, because he had nothing to do with that. He just burnt a leech, and now Robb's gone.
Yeah. So he looks at that and says, "Well, now that must mean something."
Mm-hmm.
So, another thing I noticed, this is like just a side note, when they were looking at the map right at the beginning when it was Robb and Catelyn.
Yeah.
There is that one, like, they have all the figures, like the wolves and the lions.
The wolves, lions, the towers.
And the towers. And there's that one, the X one.
That's the Boltons.
Okay.
The Boltons, like, Roose Bolton's the one who betrayed him and stabbed him in the end. Their sigil is a flayed man, so it's I guess they made him upside down for the show, whatever, so it's a dude on that X, and he's been skinned alive.
Okay, I was wondering what that meant. I thought that if that had something to do with what was going on with, what's his name? The tortured one.
Theon. Well,
it might. Who knows? The X does have a certain.
Theon's in the north somewhere, and he has kind of been skinned, and he is kind of on one of those X's.
Yeah, that's true. So that's why it made me think of that, and it did show it for a reason. But I guess they never really talked about that.
It's also because, like, I mean, with the shows, a lot of people have a hard time keeping track of all the characters. Like, if I were to say the name Roose Bolton to you a couple episodes ago, it would be like a familiar name, but I don't know if you'd be able to put a face to it or not. Like, maybe you would, and some other people couldn't.
A couple episodes, he was pretty involved.
He's become more prevalent this season for good reason. But showing that, I guess, gets people thinking, and it'll help them figure out who that person is and why he's so important in the Stark army.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that makes sense. As far as repercussions of this event, which, by the way, the whole thing, we had actually talked about, like, the actual scene itself. It was so well done. Like,
it was perfect.
Like,
it was very close to the books too, which I liked. But yeah, like, you could kind of feel like something was going to happen. Like, you didn't fully trust what was going on.
There's too many smiles.
It was still a wedding. It was still a happy event and everything. Excuse me. But you could tell, like, when the doors closed and the music changed, Catelyn was just, like, suspicious and, like, scared, but she didn't even know why.
Yeah.
Like, she just felt bad about it. And I doubt, I don't know, a lot of show watchers may not have picked it up, that when the music changed, that she looked up, they were playing the Reins of Castamere, that song that Cersei was telling Marjorie about in the last episode.
I didn't, but that's cool.
So, like, that's the song that they played, and that's a Lannister song about the Lannisters completely wiping out a different house. Mm-hmm. So why would you be playing that at this wedding,
Mm-hmm. That makes sense.
That's why she looked up there when they changed the music.
I think about the the logistics of that. So okay, they're like a week before they're planning. Okay, when I close the door, you're gonna start playing this song.
It was very very well orchestrated.
So even the musicians were in on the act.
Oh, everybody was. Even the wife, Rosalind. It was her wedding day, and like in the show, they didn't do this. In the books, she's like crying the whole time, and Catelyn's like can't figure it out because Rosalind's actually happy and Edmure's happy, and like it could have been perfect.
Yeah.
But Catelyn's just like, oh, she's probably crying. It's her wedding night, and it's a scary time for a girl, whatever. But it's another reason that she's suspicious.
Do we know that? So is Edmure killed, or they just have him as like a prisoner now?
I don't know.
Essentially, we don't know. Okay,
it's not clear. They go off and do the bedding thing, so they're out of there. They aren't part of the Red Wedding. Like, they aren't victims of that. But, like, he is still there, and, like, obviously, he's not going to be okay with what happened.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, no, that's... It really is... There's so many... Like, okay, so do we know, like, so the Blackfish was killed? And
no.
All, like, no?
Well, because the Blackfish... Well, it's, again, unclear. Because he left the wedding, he went to go find a tree to piss on, he said. And then he wasn't in the room when it all happened. So he could have been outside and been killed. I forgot
about that. I do remember him saying that, but I don't.
So yeah, he wasn't there for that.
Who do we know was killed? So we know Robb was killed.
In terms of main characters, Robb and Catelyn.
Okay.
And then like a bunch of Robb's bannermen that were in the room.
Okay.
And Grey Wind, which sucks.
Yeah, well, that does suck, especially in like such a shitty way.
Mm-hmm.
Just yeah. Well, I mean, they all got killed in a shitty way, but
yeah.
It that whole like so close but yet so far, like
for Arya,
yeah, she was there.
Oh, it's heartbreaking.
Yeah, and then I guess the Mountain, who's becoming such like a much more interesting character, or the Hound, sorry, is becoming much more of an interesting character. Obviously, has some sort of honor to him, and some.
Well, I mean, shades of gray. I wouldn't call it honor, but he's not as bad a guy as we've been led to believe,
or that he makes himself out to be.
Yeah, that too.
Yeah, but yeah, so he knocks Arya out, takes her away. I don't know what, like, I can't honestly think of what his plan would be now. He has no one to sell her to. So I'm not sure. Is he protecting her for what reason? He could have taken off at any time, right?
Mm-hmm. It's not like they like each other either. It's not like he's doing it because he cares about her.
Yeah,
right?
Isn't he on her list?
Very hate relationship.
He's on her like kill list, isn't she?
Yeah, she says in that episode that she's gonna kill him. Like one day she'll put a sword through his eye.
Okay, yeah.
All right, the other thing I'll just mention in the books, like when you read, because it's all POV chapters, right? Mm-hmm. So you never get a POV chapter with Robb. It's all told from Catelyn's perspective. The entire series. But so that chapter is obviously from Catelyn's perspective, and the one directly following it is an Arya chapter, and it's her trying to get there, and shit's going down, whatever. And then at the end of the chapter, it leads you to believe that she's killed as well. And, like, she's out of the book for a long time. So, like, you think this is, like, a boom, 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 like, 3 big ones.
Okay. So, we know they didn't do that here, obviously.
No, they didn't. The Hound just knocked her out and took her away.
Okay.
In the books, he rides her down, and it says that his axe blow hits her in the back of the head. So you're like, holy Christ.
Okay, yeah, that's a interesting way of... God damn it, George R. R. Martin, you sly son of a bitch, you.
He said, like, he did say, like, I mean, this book's been out for a long time. He said he had a really, really hard time writing it. This was, the hardest thing for him to write. But he's one of those guys that he said he just has to tell the story. The story flows through him or whatever. So he's telling the story, and it has to be this way for everything to work out in the end. But it was heartbreaking for him to write it at that time.
Okay, so now so this is the first episode, as far as I know, that didn't touch on anything that happened in King's Landing. And
I'd have to,
yeah.
Okay.
And didn't have Tyrion in it for the first time, I think, also, which they know is their favorite, like everyone's favorite character.
Yeah, but it made sense because you needed to focus on these things this episode.
Although at the same time, did we really need more Sam and
No,
Gilly?
that one Sam scene is a waste of time. They pretty much, like, he mentions that they're not going to Castle Black, that they're going to the Night Fort instead, which is the oldest castle on the wall.
Okay.
And it has the secret door that he's read about, the Black Gate or whatever. So I think that's what it's called. So
it's the way it's called, the Black Gate.
Yeah.
You would think the Black Gate would be at Castle Black, would it be?
Well, no, it's the Black, like the Men of the Night's Watch. They take the Black. Like,
yeah.
But, yeah, so he mentions where they're going, and they get to the wall, and Gilly thinks he's amazing because he can read, and that's all that scene is.
Yeah.
Also, but again, like, those scenes have to be peppered in just so you don't forget about the characters, and just so it seems like their journey is taking a long time. Like, otherwise it'd be like one episode he fights the White, the next episode they're at the wall already.
Yeah, I guess. At the same time, it's also... I can understand it because if you spent so much time, let's say, okay, like the last two episodes, like last season's episode 9, concentrated just on what was happening at King's Landing, right?
Yeah,
Blackwater. So if you had done that and they were only at the Twins and they never left and they only maybe ever talked about Arya, like went to Arya once, who's also going to the Twins.
Yeah.
You'd be like very suspicious. I feel as a show watcher, you'd be like, well, this doesn't make sense.
You would know that something big is happening at the Twins.
Exactly.
That's a good point.
And then, so what else happened? We had
the other big part of the episode was the Jon Bran storyline. I'd say more so Jon. Like, for me, this episode was like these stories converging. So there's the Robb Cat story converging with Arya's story. Like, they almost met up.
Almost. It's both situations. They almost met up.
Bran and Rickon almost met up with Jon. Like, they were in the same place. They just missed each other.
Yeah, well, he saw him, which is... saw him through the wolf's eyes.
And Jon saw the wolves, and he had a little confused look on his face when he saw the wolves, because he obviously recognized them, but he couldn't, stay to catch up. He had to get out of there. But yeah, so Jon... finally leaves the wildlings and proves that he's still a man of the Night's Watch because he won't kill an innocent man.
I loved when he killed who's that guy? Orell.
Yeah.
And he's like, you were right the whole time.
Yeah.
Which I think is hilarious. But it was interesting to hear him say that because the whole time you weren't even sure which side of the thing was on.
I mean, you could tell that Jon has been conflicted this whole time, but in the end he still, like, he wouldn't kill that guy and he made the right decision.
Oh yeah, when they were running through that through that field did he hit the rock or whatever
Yeah,
with
to
his
warn
sword?
the horses, I guess. Like, whatever.
I think that's
I know.
kinda
I know
cool.
what they were trying to get at with that.
Yeah, it was pretty obvious and it worked.
But
I think. So did 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 he knock out? Okay, by he I can't names. There's so many fucking names, but whatever. Who's the big oaf guy?
Hodor.
So did he get knocked out or killed?
Oh no! He was just put to sleep.
Oh, okay.
Bran put him to sleep.
That was that I wasn't sure about. Everyone was like freaked out when it happened, so I wasn't
No,
sure.
no, he didn't kill him. He just put him to sleep. But that's never been done before by anybody. Like they talk about skin changes in the show. They call them wargs. I believe the term warg is only for someone who can skin change into their wolf, or else a skin changer with that eagle, right?
Yeah.
And there's plenty of different skin changes. I'm pretty sure the wargs are only when it's with a wolf, but in the show they're just condensing it to that, which is fine. But they're called skin changers, so nobody's ever been able to skin change into another person like that.
That's crazy. If you could do that with anyone.
Well, I mean, it takes a while. He didn't really control that. He didn't consciously try to do that. It just hit him.
I know, I get that. But at the same time, he also consciously was able to do it with the wolves.
Yeah,
later.
He's been practicing with Summer, so he's becoming more familiar with just any time going into Summer's body.
Okay, so that makes sense. But at the same time, if he could do it with Hodor the one time, if he can practice and learn, then that ability is that's
unprecedented.
You could do almost anything with that ability. You wouldn't have to worry. You could just be the king of everything, and everything would be fine. But at the same time,
that's not really his goal. But
no, I know.
I know what you mean.
But that power is so immense in just its scope. It's you think about what you could do with it. There's almost nothing you couldn't do with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But we all know that how the Starks end up with their honor and all that stuff. So who knows what will happen with that? Probably nothing good. So whatever. I'm just gonna be sad for the rest of the day.
Yep. No, that's gonna be like that for a while.
I finished watching the episode, which had a silent credits, which I thought was
yeah, that was very well done. That just let it all sink in and let you just stare at the screen with an open mouth for the credit scene.
And I was and I had a headache immediately after. I was I couldn't process it or something. And then so I was spent the rest of the night watching comedy television shows so that I could be in a better mood.
And just not laughing. Just watching it with a stone face.
No, I watched the first 2 episodes of Community, so you'll be happy about that.
You just starting Community now?
Yeah, and I also watched the first couple episodes of Arrested Development.
Awesome.
Yeah, which are also hilarious.
Both 2 of my favorite comedies.
Both hilarious.
I've watched all seasons of each show multiple times.
I don't want to. We shouldn't start. This isn't the place to talk about that. The place to talk about that would be our other podcast, the Tower Babble podcast, which you can find on iTunes and Stitcher.
Boom! Nice promo there.
just a little plug.
Yeah, get it in there.
So we also went across the narrow sea.
Wait, no. There's more that happened there.
Oh, okay. No, you're right. Okay, what else happened?
So Jon leaves. So he's going to Castle Black to warn the Night's Watch about these wildlings. They also killed a bunch of them. So they don't have a lot of people on this side of the wall.
Yeah,
the wildlings.
As far as I can tell,
they don't need a lot. They just need to kind of open the gates for the larger army, right?
Yeah. Well, a lot of them were killed in this.
They made it seem like a lot were killed and only Tormund and Ygritte are left. I don't think that's the case because also when they climbed the wall. At the end of that episode 6, I believe. Yeah. They get to the top, and it seems like it's just Tormund, Orell, Jon, and Ygritte, just the 4 of them that made it.
Yeah, but the next scene...
The next episode, there's a bunch of guys, so, you just assume that, not all the wildlings made it there, and, so there's gonna be they have some reinforcements anyways. Mm-hmm. But either way, it's a small force. It's Yeah. This isn't the army to take down the Night's Watch. This is the army to open the gate to let the rest, their large army in.
Yeah, okay. So you have Jon, who got away on a horse, obviously heading probably to Castle Black, if you're gonna guess.
And Ygritte's pissed.
Yeah, well, I don't know. He left her for some reason.
She was she's betrayed, but angry. She wasn't just hurt or confused. She was angry.
Well, you don't know.
She was all those things, but that's what I got from her expression, anyways.
I think she was more disappointed. It was a look of not more disappointed, but of disappointment because she's been trying to convince him that not to do that.
And it's true because then Orel was right the whole time, and like that's got to be frustrating for her too. Like she
Yeah.
defended him at every turn, and then he betrayed her like that.
Yeah, that's true. But at the same time, Orel's dead, so fuck that
Yeah.
guy.
Oh, and the eagle messed up John's face.
Yeah, well, I thought he lost an eye or something, but I guess
No, he just got scratched up. That was supposed to happen way earlier, but like it's cool the way they did. The other thing that happened though is Bran and Rickon split up.
yes. So
Asha takes
great.
Rickon. Sorry.
You said great. Now we get
Yeah.
more. I guess we probably won't see Rickon for a while. I've had to guess.
you had to guess?
Asha.
I
My
don't know.
guess was that.
But
yeah.
the whole thing is that Bran now feels like he has to go north of the wall to God knows where. He doesn't know where he's going. He's just going north of the wall, which we all know is a dangerous place,
Yeah.
to find this three-eyed raven, which has been in his dreams. And like, yeah, his powers are expanding and whatever. But neither he nor Jojen nor anybody else know what that really means. He's just going. And like, I mean, I get it, like follow your dreams or whatever, but that's
Seems
a
like a
very
good
literal
idea at the time.
translation.
I feel like that, like, at some point that they could literally, I'm sure later on say, you know, this whole going north of the wall thing, yeah, it seemed like a good idea at the time, but nope.
Sure.
Well, I obviously don't know, but that just seems like that's what's gonna come.
Well, I mean, there's nothing good up there. There's no happiness up there. There's no
No.
paradise up there. So, I mean, whatever. But that's what they're doing. So they're on their own thing, and then Asha's taking Rickon to the Umbers in Last Hearth,
So
which is one of the Stark Bannermen, one of the Stark allies. They've always been allies with the Starks, and you believe you can trust them.
Okay, so the Umbers, have we ever heard about them before? Or are they
Yeah,
just,
well, I mean, in season 1 rather, when Robb is first forming his army, and there's that big guy with the beard that like kept calling him boy, and then Grey Wind bit off his fingers when he pulled his dagger. That's Great John Umber. He's the leader of the Umbers.
Oh, okay.
They call him the Great John just because he's the big guy, and then his son is called the Small John, but he's also a big guy. He's just a little bit small.
Oh, that's when you call like a really fat guy like
Little
tiny?
John, like Little John from Robin Hood kind of deal.
Okay.
But yeah,
Okay.
so that's the Great John Umber. That's his house. Their sigil is like a giant because I guess they have giant's blood or something like that. Like they're all big guys like that.
Like that's cool. Okay, so you have. Okay, that makes sense. It was cool that they like almost met up. There's those, like you said, those two other stories almost met up. No actual story met up at all.
Yeah, that's why, like we said earlier, it's so
we-
heartbreaking for Arya. Like it's not the first time that she's thought that she was close and then had it all taken away from her and everything.
Yeah.
And then it's the same, not quite the same with John and Bran, but like they still were very close and could not actually have any sort of reunion or talk to each other in any way.
It's really so. That really kind of puts home like what Catelyn must be like at that moment. She thinks that both Rickon and Bran are dead.
Yep.
Arya's dead.
Yep.
And
Sansa's a prisoner of the Lannisters.
yeah. So at that point, this is her like last, like
Yeah, that's why
This
she
is her
like
last
she goes
son.
crazy.
yeah, and she's like, I
And-
don't care anymore. I'm just gonna like, and it just slits her throat.
Yeah.
And it's whatever.
Yeah, no, Catelyn was like at the end of her rope there for sure.
Yeah, and then then John's just like resigns to death. But can we just talk about that when the murdering started for a second?
At the Red Wedding?
Yeah, the stabbing in the stomach was
Oh man, that was unnecessary. That's the other thing. They made this chick pregnant just to make it that much more devastating. In the books, it's a completely different character. She's not from Volantis. She's this girl that Robb meets in the Westerlands, and they never say that she's pregnant or anything. Like, they just did that to hurt people.
it's just so brutal.
It is. Yeah, she just gets
Stabbed in the
gutted.
stomach like 8 times. Just okay.
Not good.
So let's move on a little bit from what's going on in Westeros. Let's go across the Narrow Sea to what's going on in Yunkai with Dany. So they establish a plan to sack Yunkai by sending in Jorah and Daario and Grey Worm, right? To open the gate to let the whole army in, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. So this is where it gets like slightly confusing because you see them sneak in or whatever, right? And they kill those like 8 guys like really brutally, and it was pretty badass.
It was pretty cool. Like they were
like
sick with that spear.
He just like took them. They just took them out. That was cool. And then all of a sudden, there's like way more.
Yeah,
right?
like an unreasonable amount of guys.
Yeah. So I got the impression, I guess, that they intended to give me that impression that they didn't succeed, that they probably got captured or whatever. Because the next time you go to them,
or that Daario really did betray them or something like that.
Yeah, or
right?
something like that. But they come back, and it sets up that she's waiting for the city to be sacked, as if they've already opened the gate, which they never even told us they did. So that was confusing to me because I assumed that they were.
Confusing. It was a weird scene.
Okay, but either way, he's like
the other thing else that I thought was weird about it is it was Daario's plan, and it's like, you know, sneaking in the back door. It's a very dishonest and dishonorable plan. You know, It's not purely laying siege to the city, but Jorah was obviously suspicious of him, not for that reason, just because he's a newcomer. But Sir Barristan, the honorable man, just said nothing. Like he would, like I think he said like, I don't know, he said something about sieging the city, but he didn't like really fight that plan. You know, he's like letting her do it the dishonorable way, which I thought was odd.
Especially coming from someone like Sir Barristan, who is so he has that honor that he threw off his cloak and whatever in the first season. It's Dany is like you see Jorah come in, and then he's like but what about Daario?
Yeah.
And
so you can tell that, like, I mean, his like overly flirtatious manner is actually kind of working on her, I guess.
Yeah.
So like you could tell that she was concerned for him specifically, not just for like the army or how her battle went. She was concerned about that specific person. And Jorah didn't say anything, but he looked pretty hurt too, because he's always he's been there the whole time, and has this kind of weird relationship with Daenerys where like maybe he does like love her in that sense, and maybe it's like a father-daughter thing, and you don't really know.
Friend zone, man.
Yeah.
Once you get in, you can't get out.
Yeah.
So,
but that's pretty much everything that happened.
Yeah, I mean, not much. Okay, so the only stuff we really care about, and honestly for me, was the Red Wedding stuff, like you said it was called, and the stuff that was happening in the Gift with
Jon and Bran. Like that's the meat of this episode. But like the Red Wedding, I feel like overshadowed a lot of that. So like for a lot of people, like after your the first time watching it, that's obviously what you're going to remember the most. That's the thing to stick out. But like those are all Dany taking Yunkai, Jon leaving the Wildlings, Bran discovering that new ability, Bran and Rickon splitting up. Those are all huge plot points as well. So next episode we're going to deal with the fallout from all those things.
Okay, that makes I'd hope so.
Well,
it doesn't touch on it.
Like, next episode doesn't have to do anything really except just talk about what happened this episode, and it'll still be a great episode. You know?
Yeah. Same time, I was like, it's hard to care about what happened with Yunkai, because at the same time, she sacked the city once already. It's like this is like same old kind of deal, right?
And she also, like, the other thing, I'm in the middle of writing the review right now. It's gonna be up later, but what I just wrote about is like she sacked the city through little to no effort of her own. Like she did nothing, and like just like when she took the other city or when Daario came over, like she didn't really do anything. She just is getting all these easy victories. So. It reminded me of what Sir Barristan said about her brother Rhaegar a couple episodes ago, that he just inspired loyalty in people. So like she's not fighting the hard battles, but she's inspiring loyalty in the right people.
Well, she doesn't have to get out there with a sword, Dan. That's
well,
no, I
know,
job.
But like she's like, I guess in the one she had her dragons do it, so that was more her doing. That was her planning and stuff like that.
Yeah,
it just seems like she's had a lot of easy victories and easy conquests.
Well, but you're also not dealing with like people with actual armies. You had an army of mercenaries essentially.
And like what did she do? She just looked at the guy the right way, and he killed his other commanders to go to her side.
It's like she hasn't really had to deal with anything super like no one's been prepared to deal with her, except for this moment. There was the most prepared she's had to deal with. A city with big walls.
The other thing is like we don't really know much about the city at the moment. It's not like Astapor, she went into the city and freed the slaves. Like, she killed everybody and freed the slaves.
Well, she did the same thing here, didn't she, essentially?
Well, it's not clear what happened here.
Well, no, she said that, just like you said, when we did whatever...
their slaves turned on them and whatever.
Yeah.
So, like, so she probably expanded her army a bit, but, like, where does she go from here? The other thing is they've merged Yunkai with another city, Marine. Like, this story is
No, they talked about Marine, didn't they?
They mentioned it, but the story is taking place in Yunkai.
Oh, okay.
Like, so those two cities have been merged for the story anyways.
Okay, so she won't have to say in the book she sacks 3 cities? Are you okay.
Yeah. But
So, there's no reason for that.
Like, we'll see what happens or whatever. But like, yeah, where does she go from here? She really just moved a little bit further north along the Slaver's Bay. She's still really far away from Westeros, and still has no ships.
Well, I mean, I'm sure there's ships in either Yunkai or in Astapor.
Yeah.
So I mean, if she could get ships, I think that's not like if she wanted now, she could just build ships. She's got enough people to do that. So that's like, I don't think that's an issue. I think now we want to know. I think after this episode, I want to know, or this season at least, is she going to finally come over and be more of a significant player in what's going on in Westeros? Right now, she feels separate because she is so separate. We care about what's going on with her, but at the same time, what her actions have little to no effect on what's happening to the rest of the story. That's true.
I mean, I don't want to tell you what happens after this season.
Well, obviously not, but I'm just saying, for me...
yeah, where does she go from here? Yeah.
If at the end of this season she's still just wandering around the desert on the other side of... Well, she's not in the desert anymore, but you know what I mean. Yeah. She's just still wandering around, sacking cities, freeing slaves, which is cool, whatever. But if that's still happening, that's disappointing to me, because that means she hasn't really done much then. She got her army, sure, but then she's still just hanging out over there.
That's the other thing that even like Jorah was saying a few episodes ago. Like, she doesn't need to be going and sacking the city. She doesn't need to care about the slaves here. She needs to get to Westeros. Mm-hmm. She's wasting her time. Well, like, not wasting her time because she is like freeing slaves and being good and all that stuff. But like, she needs to be getting home and claiming her throne.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I have a question for you, which actually just has... So we know Westeros, whatever, is the Seven Kingdoms, right?
Yeah.
And then we have, across the Narrow Sea, what's that continent called?
It's just called Essos.
Essos?
There's Westeros and Essos.
Okay, so you have Westeros and Essos, and Essos has the free cities, quote-unquote, right?
Yeah.
No kings.
Well, like, yeah, it's like city-state kind of deal.
Yeah. Has there ever been a time when Westeros and Essos were... quote-unquote ruled by the same people? Like, I know they had the Targaryens came from past Essos from there. Where did they come from?
No, they came from Essos. They came from a place called Valyria,
okay,
which is like a ruined part of Essos now. There's some cataclysmic event that happened that's called the Doom that nobody really knows what happened that destroyed Valyria.
Okay.
The Targaryens were just one family from Valyria.
Okay.
They just had made it that far. In terms of the free cities, the Valyrians, like the place where the Targaryens are from, they had the biggest empire in history of Essos, so like the free cities are all kind of strongholds of that empire.
Okay.
As it stands right now, they are free cities. They're like Pentos and Myr and Lys. They're all their own things. But the Valyrians did expand their empire. They were like the Romans of this world.
So they had Essos, and then they went across and took Westeros.
Even where Daenerys is now, Astapor, Yunkai, Meereen, the people living there is a place. The whole area is called Gis, and they're called the Giscari, and they had a huge empire before the Valyrians. But the Valyrians, with their dragons, just took over everything.
Sure. Okay.
But it was never like the Valyrians. They took over all that part of Essos, and the Targaryens were the family that went over to Dragonstone, and that was their first foothold into Westeros for any Valyrian. So no Valyrians had been there yet. So the Targaryens had Dragonstone, and that's why it's like made out of like carved dragons and everything like that. Mm-hmm. And that's how they moved into Westeros. But so they were there when the Doom happened to Valyria that killed pretty much everyone else.
Okay. Oh, okay.
So that's why the Targaryens were able to conquer Westeros and just completely take over there.
Mm-hmm. So, because before that, there was 7 separate kingdoms. There was like the North, and there was like the Reach, and a bunch of different places, right? Yeah,
the Stormlands, the Westerlands, the Eyrie, the Riverlands, and Dorne.
Which we haven't seen yet, at least not on...
Dorne is the only one that hasn't, and the Eyrie kind of, like, those two haven't really been...
Oh, we were at the Eyrie
You know of the Eyrie, but you have to understand, like, the Eyrie is one of the kingdoms. Like, they have a huge, powerful army, just like the North did, and the Lannisters do. Maybe not as big.
Who are they... who do they follow, essentially? Like, are they with...
They're their own kingdom. Like, so... So the guy who died at the very beginning of the show, the guy who died, the very first scene, they were putting the things on his eyes. Yeah. I don't know if it was the first scene. Okay. But whatever.
Now the first scene of the very first episode is the
the
Night's Watch.
Yeah. Okay, but anyways, the guy who died, the Hand of the King that Ned replaced, he was what's called the Warden of the East. So his stronghold was the Eyrie, and Catelyn's sister Lysa was his wife.
Okay.
You know, it's
Yeah,
just,
she's
she's
the
still
crazy
there.
one, right?
Yeah, so they're still there. But like, he's the Warden of the East, just like Ned Stark is the Warden of the North,
Mm-hmm.
and Tywin Lannister is the Warden of the West. You know, like they are the big powerhouses of those areas. So that the Eyrie and everywhere around there is one of those big powerhouses that just hasn't been a part of the war. Same with the
Okay.
Dornish in the south.
And they're just the Dornish even have an army, or are they just kind of
Yeah.
chill out
Oh yeah.
there?
No, they have their own. They're their own kingdom, and the Dornish, they're very different from everybody else in Westeros. Out of the seven kingdoms, they're the only ones that weren't conquered through battle
Yeah,
when when Aegon came over.
they just joined up, right?
They were conquered through marriage, like they were married in.
Well,
but
conquered, quote unquote.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like they were made part of the seven kingdoms through a marriage, not through being destroyed by dragons.
And they make good wine, apparently.
Yeah.
So, do we have anything else to touch on as far as this episode?
No, I mean like it's. I'm just very excited to see how it's all dealt with. I'm expecting like next episode we're gonna get a scene. I can just picture Tywin talking to Tyrion and Cersei about what happened and like they won the war.
Okay, so that's another thing. Okay, so we'll talk about that for a second. So you don't get told explicitly, but you understand that Tywin orchestrated this.
Yeah. Well,
so
when Bolton stabs Robb, he says the Lannisters send their regards.
Yeah. But you get okay. I just imagine. Okay, this is another one of those things. It's like where, like, kind of like with the play that song when they close the door thing. All those letters that Tywin's writing like all the time when he's talking to people. I just imagine all those things. Just say, okay, so we're gonna do this, and then on one of those letters it says, when they close the door, play this song.
But that's true. Like all those letters that he's writing the whole time, like he has to be talking to Roose Bolton and Walder Frey about this. Like they had to coordinate that
Through the Raven telecommunication service.
Yeah. So I'm expecting a scene like that. Like the other thing, like if you look at the map of the way the war stands right now, where the North, not just because their army's gone, but Roose Bolton held Harrenhal, which is that linchpin right in the middle. Mm-hmm. It's also the largest and has a lot of feeding lands, whatever. And then Walder Frey has the Twins, which is the only way to really cross the rivers there. Like those are two strongholds. They're two very valuable assets in the war. And like there is still technically a war because there are like the Brotherhood is still around and the Northmen are the Ironborn are in the north and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. So you have,
but like the Lannisters are just in control right now.
So they control pretty much everything from the south all the way to
everything south of Catelyn, everything south of the Northern Kingdom.
Okay. And north is kind of in shambles right now because we have
the Ironborn are there, but there's also Northmen there, and the Ironborn haven't taken over. They've just they've destroyed Winterfell.
Yeah, so Winterfell's burning.
And it wasn't really the Ironborn that did that though, right? You don't know who did that.
So it was or it wasn't?
Well, no, because like when Theon was captured there, they pretty much said that whoever was outside Winterfell said if the Ironborn gave up Theon, they would let them walk free.
Yeah. So
that's what they did. So like, why was Winterfell burning after that?
Well, so I've been wondering that for a while, and they literally have not answered. Okay, here's the thing: if they don't tell me what's going on with Theon next episode, I quit.
I think you can probably safely assume that we'll get some closure, like not closure necessarily, but you'll get a few answers with that storyline.
I feel like they've been hinting at it for a while now. At least,
I mean, enough is enough. Like he's had a bunch of really gruesome torture scenes. We don't need to see him tortured in a new and creative way. We kind of need a few more answers as to why he's being tortured and who's torturing him. Yeah, and like where this all fits into the stories, right?
Exactly. Is there any like performances that really stuck out to you as far as like acting wise in this episode?
I mean, Rickon never really gets lines, and that was cool. Like whatever, but like wasn't Catelyn was crazy.
I feel like she literally just reached the end of her rope. She literally went crazy by the end of the episode. Mm-hmm. But I mean,
she was very like out of control and just like screaming and like not even making sense really. Like he obviously is not just gonna get up and walk away with a bunch of arrows stuck in him, you know.
Exactly.
Like, but like that's where her mind is. This just like get out of here, get to somewhere safe.
Yeah,
I mean, and then at the end, she just kills an innocent because of everything that's happened, and she just lets herself die.
Yeah, I mean,
the other thing in the books, I'll just mention, it's not really a big deal, but in the books, she goes crazy when this happens, and she slits that girl's throat, and then she says that she just felt like a bunch of like birds or whatever were scraping her face, and like then she died or whatever. But she just went like physically crazy and started scratching her own face and like tearing the skin and up.
Probably didn't need to see that.
Yeah. It just can't hammers in like that was when she just clicked and was psycho and whatever.
All right. Well, if you have nothing else to talk about as far as this episode, I think we can wrap it up.
Sure.
This week's intro music and outro music is by Slightly Musical, which is the YouTube channel for Albert Chang. He does orchestral covers. He did the orchestral cover to obviously the Game of Thrones theme. He also did one for that song from The Hobbit. What's that one called?
The Over the Lonely Mountain or whatever.
Yeah. So he's in music school or something like that. It's really good.
Music school. He's in music school.
He's in music school.
Man, I can't wait to go to doctor school.
And anyway, it's really good. So we'll enjoy that. We will talk to you guys next week about episode 10. Do you know what it's called, Dan?
It's called Misha.
Misha. Okay.
It's not an English word. Nobody really knows what that means.
Okay. And then maybe we'll be back the week after that with a recap of the whole season. So we'll
do
see.
like a season review. But yeah, next episode is the season finale.
Okay. So until then, we'll see you guys next time.
See ya.